So a little introduction. John Mark Bjorlie. We have known each other since before I can remember, probably. Yeah. Our
Same
parents,
here.
parents knew each other before we were born. So go way back. Really am encouraged by John Mark. Real excited for this episode. Particularly, well, no, I don't want to say particularly. But the treasured discoveries, which we're about to talk about, I'm real excited for your perspective and your take on the word. So if you were to say, here's a truth that you from the word of God that you really treasure, it's more precious to you than gold or silver, what would you say to that?
Two passages, and they are both from different phases of life. One has been kind of rehashed. God brought it back, and I kind of learned it in a new way. And that one would be in First John. And First John is a book that can make you feel unsaved and then make you feel really saved. and God used it in just that way. Growing up as the son of a preacher, most Christian truths become such second nature, such part of your environment, that there's a level of challenge where it's hard to feel like it's your own in a way.
Yeah.
And it's not a knock on our parents. It's not a knock on that. I think if I was going to put my upbringing and the privileges that I had, being friends with you, your family, I mean, I just had was dealt the easiest hand on earth. Like, I really do feel like I've been most privileged of anyone I could ever shake hands with or meet or think of. But that doesn't mean the fact that I don't personally need to be right with God.
Yeah.
And so there was the time when I was not serious. I was very sinful and just self-centered in every way, and hypocritical, extremely hypocritical. Every single Sunday at church, I mean, participating in at church, but actively living like, and in many cases worse than, the people around me. Kind of the opposite of Psalm 1. Blessed is he who walks not in the counsel of the ungodly, nor stands in the way of sinners, nor sits in the seat of the scornful. I started off walking in the counsel of the ungodly, and then I'd eventually stand in their way, like, hey, are we going to hang out? And then eventually I sat among the scornful. So just the worst. And one night I was out busy being a hypocrite. In fact, I was arguing. I was trying to witness. I was trying to win friends for Christ while participating in destructive activity with them. And they stopped, and they're like, Bjorlie, why are you telling us this? Like, what is different about you or us? And they just called me out.
Yeah.
And so things were coming to a head, and God was using us to get at me. And the passage was in First John. I went up to my room, and I was just depressed about it. And this verse, in verse 6, if we say that we have fellowship with him, this is First John 1, verse 6, and walk in darkness, we lie and do not practice the truth. So, and then in verse 4 of chapter 2, and I read the whole chapter. I had this thing, like, I should read a chapter a night. I should just read the Bible. And this was like a year in the making. So I was reading, I think I might have started in the New Testament or something, and just read a chapter a night.
Yeah.
Or maybe a year. I don't know how long. It was a while. Just every night I would do it, kind of mindlessly, but I was like, I should do it. Good Christian kid. Not good Christian, but I knew, there was this vacuum that needed to be filled. And in verse 4, he who says, I know him, and does not keep his commandments is a liar, and the truth is not in him. And that was me. I was saying I knew him, but I didn't care to keep his commandments. I didn't care to be obedient to God's truth, to his plain statements. There's that statement of faith. If you have faith, show me. If just a body without the spirit is dead, so faith without works is dead. And I don't want to get, push people and start judging their motives, but I know that was the case with me. And it was very convicting. It could be a testament to the presence of the Holy Spirit that God used it on me, that I was truly saved when I was, 6 years old. This is always a struggle I've had, but God used that to get right, to hit me hard and say, you need to be right. You need to kind of walk the walk. If you say you're going to believe it, then believe it. And belief is always, followed by action. So that was a big one.
Yeah.
That's something I feel like.
I think especially like we were talking First John, how when you're reading it, I like the way you put it, but he deals in such black and white terms. It's light and darkness, it's love and hate, right? It's one or the other. And that kind of trying to live a dual life, the one foot in each realm, it's like you can't do it. And
No.
and it's great to, we can read these verses, right? But like you said, it came to a head. It came to a point in your life where it wasn't just words, like that mindless reading, but like, this is true. Like I've got to choose one, and it doesn't make sense to be both. Yeah, that's good.
Yeah. And we get those all the time in life. We get those. There's I can continue being easily distracted, or I can start putting my nose down and getting my job done. I can continue being immature and flying in the face of authority, or I can learn how to stay in my lane and, prove I'm actually good at something by example, or lead by example. And so there have been many lessons like this, but this was a big one that it was a watershed moment.
And did you say you've got a second one you want to cover as well?
Yes. So that's the early life one.
Okay.
I'm trying to think how long ago that was. I'm 35. Whatever that, I can't even think. I didn't write it down, so I can't think. So a while ago, it was before I got married. Yeah. Thank God.
Yeah.
I was a freshman in college when this happened.
Okay.
So I was just out of high school. I think it was during like a spring break or a winter break or something like that.
Like 16 years ago ish, something like that.
Yep. Yeah, that sounds about right. The second one is the exact same passage.
Oh.
And this was later on, much more consistent Bible reading. Every single day, I just knew it was something I needed to do. You're married with kids. I mean, this is like, life's real now, not that it's there's more people relying on you.
Right. It's you're in a situation where the reality of your choices are more in your face. It's yeah.
The consequences are greater of everything you do, good and bad.
And for me, you seeing your kids imitate you, it's like, whoa, that's like, I gotta watch it, Yeah.
Oh man, I have a couple of preteens, and seeing the hens come home to roost, I'm like, oh no. My wife will point at me. She's like, this is you. And I'm like, yeah, you're right. So it's humbling and funny.
Yeah.
So the second one was personal sanctification and the importance of it. And again, reading First John. And it was at a point where I was kind of upset about our denomination. I was upset about different Christian, just different things like that. There's politics, there's interpersonal strife. And I was not happy about so many things. I was not content. And that's a big lesson to learn. I'm learning that more and more. But in First John, it says, if we walk in the light as he is in the light, we have fellowship with one another, and the blood of Jesus Christ, his son, cleanses us from all sin. I was in a study group with some really good guys, and they weren't complaining, but their grievances, I was complaining. I would complain. And my grievances with like my denomination, our small church group, they had the same type of issues or similar, I'm like, oh yeah, I could see that was a problem. It would be a problem. And the Lord used that to hit me that your problems with other people are just your problem. It's not their problem. And you have these problems, you go somewhere else and it's going to be the same problems. And
right, because
so
you're still there.
Yeah. Exactly. And your dad said a really good thing years ago. He said one of them, a big missing ministry is a ministry of encouragement. It's a slog out there. And a brother, Warren Henderson, would say a similar thing. He said, church is where you go to get refreshed and build up and be built up. The last thing we need to do is come there and, look for issues. And so that those challenges personally were really good to hear. And God used that. And so he used this passage of walking in the light, and God used it to shed light on sins that I was harboring. And I didn't think it was that bad type things. And it kind of came to a head. And moral failings. I'm just going to say it. One of them was the issue of pornography. And he pushed me to get right with him. God did. And then another passage I was reading. So at this time, I'm just eating, I'm burdened and reading in God's word. And there's another one with the angel of the Lord appears. The angel of the Lord appears to Gideon. And I don't know where that is. Judges 8. And he appears to Gideon, and he's like, hey, no, this is like Judges 6. He appears to Gideon, and so the angel of the Lord, he says, Judges 6:11. Now the angel of the Lord came and sat under the terebinth tree, which was in Ophrah, which belonged to Joash and the Abizrite, while his son Gideon threshed wheat in the wine presses in order to hide from the Midianites. And the angel of the Lord appeared to him and said to him, the Lord is with you, you mighty man of valor. Gideon said to him, oh, my Lord, if the Lord is with us, why then has all this happened to us? So he's upset. And where are all his miracles, which our fathers told us about? So here's an interesting thing, is the Judges, the precursor to all this is that the next generation didn't learn the truth. Well, there's some that did. And so Gideon knew it and he believed it, but he's like, what's going on? How come? Did the Lord bring us out, or did not the Lord bring us out of Egypt? But now the Lord has forsaken us and delivered us into the hands of the Midianites. And so he's like, he has a zeal for what's right. And the Lord turned and said to him, go in this might of yours, and you shall save Israel from the hand of the Midianites. Have I not sent you? And so there's this kind of a call to capitalize on the zeal. Like, hey, you're feeling it, go for it. Like, take action. This is a burden to you, take action on it. And so that passage in 1 John was the convicting part, and Judges was like the do something about it part. And God pushed me to just take action, get ruthless. And then he gave clarification of passages like, if your right hand offends you, cut it off. If your eye offends you, pluck it out. Like, if there are things in your life that are the sin causer, like, do something about it. Like, don't just be like, yeah, that's always been a problem. Like, do something about it. And so it caused a radical shift in my habits, in my lifestyle, internet usage. Kind of like treat yourself like an addict. Like, I just can't be alone. I have to go. If no one's home, I got to go to a coffee shop. And over the years, these goals change, and the levels of accountability. And so the program Covenant on all my devices and things like that. But God used that to be like the 1 John passage about walking in light. And you're concerned about having fellowship with Christians and being active in the church. Well, deal with your problems. It's not they're not the ones with the problems. And so using that, and it's just been like a breath of fresh air, and like I got saved again. I mean, it's just so wild. And so that was quite a few years ago now. And it's great. So those are two formative truths. I forgot how you defined it.
Yeah, those treasured discoveries. Yeah, just
Yes.
a few things I noticed as you were talking. The idea of walking in the light. I read recently The Pilgrim's Regress by C.S.
Mm,
Lewis, and it's basically his testimony, but in a metaphor or an allegory, like John Bunyan's. And
yeah.
and in at the beginning, he's not saved, and he's walking on this path, right? And the path kind of meanders, and as you get off the path, the further north you go, the rockier it gets, and this more south you go, the swampier it gets. Well, then near the end of the book, he has his conversion, right? And he's saved. Well, then he has to do a return trip. And as he goes on the path, it's as straight as an arrow, right?
Oh,
It's changed. And the if he takes one step to the north, it's pure rock. And if he takes one step to the south, he's knee deep in swamp, right? Like all of the subtlety of being off the path is gone, right?
hmm.
And I love the imagery of it, right? Because we see
Yeah.
all the nuances of, yeah, you get further and further into sin, and he's like, no, you take a step out of the light and you're in the darkness. And that
Yeah.
has helped me so much to because when you're struggling with some sort of sin, and you give yourself so much wiggle room until it's like, okay, and now I've crossed a line, right?
Yeah.
And it's like, no, you take a step out of fellowship, off the light.
That's good.
Yeah. And
That's really good.
I was thinking with the story of Judges, um, it's always baffled me the way the angel addresses him, right? He calls him the mighty man of valor, right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah. And he's hiding. Yeah.
yeah, you're right. He's threshing wheat in a wine press, could you? Yeah. But I think it's encouraging to see the way the Lord sees us, to see what the end result will be, right? Because
Mhm.
very often when you're dealing with kind of that reoccurring struggle, right? Like you've been talking about, it doesn't just go away, right? It's, this
Yeah.
is your life you're talking about. The flesh doesn't go away. You can't just move and your problems disappear, right? Because you're still
Yeah.
there. And so with um as we look down the road, it's hard not to get that defeatist attitude, right? Well,
Yeah.
I'm gonna stumble eventually, right? And so
Yeah.
instead to see this kind of, Gideon being called the mighty man of valor, it's like, who am I? Well, like, this is who he was destined to be, right? God knew he would deliver the people, and in the same
Yeah.
way, God knows what I will become, right? And
Yep.
and the perspective that holds with it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's a lot. I was struggling with a restoration, forgiveness, and how do you deal with that? Like someone's hurt you. It wasn't my personal, of someone, it wasn't an issue with me, but I was looking at another situation. Like, how do you restore? And like, kind of like, how does that work? I mean, I've never had to deal with that. And I feel like, I don't know if I could, type thing. If I was, really hurt, really, someone, lied to me, type thing. And then I thought, well, I have hurt many and they have been so patient with me. So there's a big one, people behave like Christ. And then you read Hebrews 11, the hall of faith, and you're like, what? Samson, Jephthah. But yeah, God is a lot more optimistic regarding the soul than we are.
Yeah.
and which is amazing. And it's the reality of salvation, the reality of righteousness, of grace, that Christ's sacrifice, really, it's the reality of it. But yeah, I with you on that. It's
And
amazing.
yeah, you said a phrase. You said it's almost as if I got saved again, right? And I think
Hmm.
there's something to that. This idea of entering into the salvation that you had received, right? Like
Hmm.
when we get saved, we're justified. We've received that salvation, but we don't know it fully, right? We still struggle, and uh, even though we have no obligation to the flesh, we still yield to it sometimes. But
Yeah.
when we enter more into that salvation through the sanctification process, and better know the deliverance that has been given to us,
Yeah.
it's like in the sacrifices, you have the shedding of blood, and then you have the sprinkling of blood, right? So the shedding of blood
Yeah.
is the application, right? Where
Hmm.
kind of like that salvation. The sprinkling is a fresh appreciation, right? It's like this where it's made real again. It's that
Yeah.
reminder. So with
Yeah.
that, I want to segue
All right.
to this idea. We're talking treasured discoveries. You shared these two big ideas, and I want to ask you, so how do you keep the treasure polished, right? So you're living life, right? We even talked about this idea of passion, right? You discover this, you have that zeal, but
Yeah.
a year later, 5 years later, how do you keep these ideas fresh, right? How do you keep the silver polished?
Yeah. That's a good one. Well, every time I had got bombed with the truth bomb, it was when I would open the Bible and read it. And there's that illustration. I wish I had a map on me. I have a map. Check this out. The book of maps. So 67th book of the Bible. Wait, does this have maps? This has maps. Okay, it has maps. All right. So say this map is the will of God. This is going to give you all the directions of where you need to go and everything. Well, I want to know what the will of God is, but I'm like way over here. I'm not on the map. I'm way over there. I'm on the other side of the globe. So I'm not even on the map. So there's some basics that God is very clear about, of like knowing his will. And those are, there's a Sunday school song about it. Read your Bible, pray every day, you'll grow, grow, grow. And I think it's almost as essential as that. Just opening, and it says the entrance of his word gives light, gives understand, it makes wise the simple. It gives understanding to the simple. I don't know the exact quote of it. And that is huge. So just God's word. And so that was a burden back then. And I think I was kind of scant and slow on it. And then several years ago, when God really hit me hard, back then I was like, I'm going to read through the Bible, and I would blast through the Bible, quickly and multiple times. I'm going to know the word. And it was kind of data. I was downloading data in a way. But establishing a consistent habit of opening the Bible every single day, I think is it. There's that passage in Psalm 51 where he says, "Restore to me the joy of salvation." And that's that feel saved again idea. I think that's kind of like giving you a glimpse of that when that burden was lifted. And I think there's many burdens that get lifted through our lives, and you feel lighter and lighter. But a big piece of that is hearing from God and being in his word. And there's some, you get cut quite a few times, but it yields good health afterward, some
Yeah.
bloodletting.
Yeah, I like how I've mentioned this before, that every time the word of God is used as a picture, it's always an essential part of the picture. So it's the sword in the soldier's hand, it's the hammer in the workman's hand, right? It's the water to wash, it's the food to eat. No matter what picture you use, the Bible is essential, right? It's a farmer without his seed, right? It's a ridiculous picture. And trying to be a Christian without the word is the same sort of situation.
Yeah. And if this is a sad thing, but if you polled an audience of, any group of Christians, maybe even go to a Bible study and say, who reads the Bible every single day? And I'm not saying don't be a super Christian of, I read the Bible in a month or the Bible in a year. I mean, I think that's really good to do that, 4 chapters a day. And there are a lot of saints that do 4 chapters a day. But 2 chapters a day, Bible in 2 years. Who reads a chapter a day? And you start asking, and it gets thin. And so that's a big deal. And like it's then you start realizing, oh, this is why we have, we don't know things. It's because we're just not paying attention to the truth. So.
And how would you personally? So maybe someone listening is like, okay, but that's just a checklist, right? You read it. If it's just a checklist thing, is it really doing any good? What would be your thoughts on that?
I mean, there are basic, if you had the opportunity to go hear from God and your mind isn't sharp, you don't have a notepad with you, but it's either that or stay in the garbage dump. I mean, what would you do? Like, obviously you would just go. And so I think it's as simple as that. I mean, do you actually want to be in heaven? Like, do you want to know who God is? Then you should pay attention to what he says. So those, and then a follow-up with that, or in addition, there's a passage in the Proverbs that says, whoever isolates himself seeks his own desire, he rages against all wise judgment. And there's this idea of avoiding Christian fellowship. Like, I have nothing to learn from other people. And that is a huge fallacy. And I've never, ever once seen it work out. And I'm not that old, but I've seen a lot of people like this. We're in West Michigan. I'm not anymore, but we were tons of independent people. I'm cut from that cloth myself. I lean toward that, like, I don't need to listen to anyone type thing. And it never has yielded good, never once. And so loving the Christians and wanting to be around them and saying, I have something to learn from these people, I think is a marker of someone who's able to grow. So,
yeah. And tying it back with spending time in the word and seeking God's counsel and time with him. Yeah. And how, what you said in 1 John, how staying in the light yields fellowship one with another.
Yep.
Well, good. I hope our discussion and exploration of these different scriptures has helped you treasure this very practical and needed truth. Remember to share this podcast with your friends, look us up on social media, and until next time, enjoy the Book of Life.